Welcome to Heroes and Droids, your guide to movies and TV shows about superheroes, sci-fi, Disney, and action. From Marvel to DC, from Star Wars to Star Trek, from James Bond to the Fast and the Furious. We will talk about the theatrical films and streaming delights you care about most. This week we're looking at Boba Fett, the book of Boba Fett, even episode 5. 2 more to go after this. Oh my. All right, I'm your host, Doc Rotten, and joining me tonight are my favorite crew. All right, starting off with Christopher Slattery. He is the SLATTMAN. How you doing, sir?
I'm Oh, Bantha Diddle. I forgot my joke.
You booger. Also joining us, podcast rock star, international cosplay queen, Vanessa. How you doing?
I am doing great. Good to be back. Excited to be back for this episode in particular.
Yeah, did you think you were watching the right show? I'm just kidding. All right, also joining us, yes, award-winning filmmaker Christopher. How you doing, sir?
I'm totally wizard.
You're so wizard.
I'm so wizard.
Yes.
I'm so wizard. Frodo's looking for me.
Nah. Wow. Cross streams.
Oh my God.
Also joining us is comic book artist, and he's also a rock star. Yes, it's Chad. If you've seen some of his videos on Facebook, you would know what I mean. How you doing, Chad?
I'm good. I'm getting my Christmas list ready for this year. I want a BD droid, and I want a dark saber, and I want a Pee Wee Herman bike, which has nothing to do with it.
Well, you know, Paul Rubens actually did voice the Star Tours robot, so
Yeah, that's true.
there is a
cool.
connector there.
Okay, then it's legit. I want a Pee Wee Herman bike.
All right, well, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to start off giving our first impressions, and then we're going to dive into our. We're just going to get into it, and then everything's fair game after that. So, first impression, spoiler free. Then we're going to dive into it. We did do Easter eggs and special details and all these references and hidden facts on another episode. Check those out when you can. I think you will like that. And then, of course, we'll wrap things up with our recommendation, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite Boba Fett scene with Boba Fett in it.
I don't think that's possible.
Spoilers.
Spoilers! All right. Of course, we hope you enjoy not only this review, but every Boba Fett that shows up on the rest of it, but not here.
If that were a drinking gang, everybody would be sober.
I know. You're
Yeah.
in bad shape. All right, let's just get into it, guys. What's the card? All right. Well, I had to use the one character that did show up. Season 1, Episode 5, Return of the Mandalorian, streaming January 26th. 22, directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. And I'll just say here right now, give this moment a Star Wars movie.
Yes.
Written by Jon Favreau, based on the Star Wars characters and universe. And by George Lucas. Where did I go with that? The cast is
Just say and stuff next time.
Are you having a stroke? Do we need to call EMS?
Okay. Emily Swallow and Haynes. Synopsis and SLATTMAN, read this for us.
Another Lucasfilm original. An unexpected ally emerges.
All right, let's do this. Let's get into our first impressions. SLATTMAN, I can't wait to hear. What was your first impression of The Mandalorian 2.5? Book of Boba Fett 5.
Okay.
So as a Book of Boba Fett show, it was very disappointing. As anything Star Wars related else other than a Book of Boba Fett episode, it was fan freaking tastic.
Yes.
And my biggest issue with it is that they decided that this amazing story in the Book of Boba Fett could take a complete halt for an entire episode. And it just, I don't know, that's my biggest issue with it, really. And that's it's like there's so many things that still need to be answered in 2 episodes, and I don't know how they're gonna do it, but man, this episode was fan freaking tastic. Getting a nice like 2.95 of episode of Mandalorian season 2. You know, not quite
Mhm.
at 3, but yeah, there's a lot I want to talk about, but I can't really get into it because spoilers. So,
Spoilers.
I guess I'll be as vague as I can. I loved the script. I loved the acting. I loved the direction. I loved everything about this. But my biggest issue with it is that it doesn't feel like a Book of Boba Fett episode, and that's probably why I loved it so much. Is because it felt like something from a completely different series, a completely different, like nothing like really matched, like from a production standpoint, if you ask me. Like everything was top notch, like what you expect from any of these Lucasfilm Star Wars projects. So it feels very disconnected from the show that we have been watching, but that doesn't take away from it. It just makes us realize that we should be getting a different show than Book of Boba Fett, and kind of makes me not like the last 4 episodes as much as I have already.
Oh. Taint.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. And holy crap, Bryce Dallas Howard.
What a great job.
Yeah, my 2 favorite episodes of The Mandalorian are now directed by her. So
It's fantastic. All right, Vanessa, welcome back. Of course, you just returned from where? Galaxy's Edge, did I hear?
Disney World, yes. Galaxy's Edge, amazing. I had the best time. It's so, I just want to go back. It's such an immersive experience that it just calls you back.
Vanessa Fett. I gotta get Fett in here somewhere. What was your first impression of episode 5?
I think my overall impression after watching this episode is that everything we think this season was going to be, we have been proven wrong. And it draws me back to the title a lot, the Book of Boba Fett. It's almost like a collection of stories as opposed to just focusing on him alone. And I really find that interesting, and I wonder if they're going to continue on with that, you know, as this hopefully the series continues to go on in future seasons. Because this episode, I mean, like the SLATTMAN was saying, it's just out of nowhere, completely out of nowhere and completely different. While it does kind of parallel what we saw in The Mandalorian when Boba Fett showed up, this one's a lot more focused, particularly on, you know, our other character. So I'm just interested to see, like, I still think we're learning what the Book of Boba Fett is. Every time we think we have it nailed down or we think we figured it out, it kind of changes or throws a wrench in it in the next episode. And I find that really, really interesting. And I'm enjoying that kind of journey that we're on with this story. And a secondary impression also, Bryce Dallas Howard is one hell of a director. Like, she has such a kinetic energy about the episodes that she's directed and things I've seen her direct that I would absolutely love to see her do a full-length feature film, or, you know, just get to show run a series of her own or something. Would be fantastic, because she's got it, you know, just in the same way that her dad does. She's just got that spark that you just feel when you're watching something that she's involved in. But man, and lastly is the droids. Man, I had so much fun with all the droids that we got to see in this episode, and how they got to interact and how kind of important they were to things happening in this episode. And I just love to see that.
Even with the disposition that somebody has. All right, Christopher G.
Yeah,
Morris.
it was very Star Wars.
Yes. What was your first impression of the Book of Boba Fett, episode 5?
I enjoyed the hell out of it, and I think, to me, this episode is no different than some of the side stories they've done in Clone Wars, to where, like, why are we focusing on this other people instead? Let's go back to this story. I think it's no different than that. We just have it like this one episode, and it still connects. But I mean, the thing is, I think most people wish Boba Fett was like Din Djarin. I feel like most people wish he was like that, because I think in these last few episodes, I guess some people just automatically assume that, I mean, especially some of the toxic fandoms, they just feel like, oh, Boba Fett's supposed to be this sort of unscrupulous person who's just killing people left and right. We get to see Din Djarin do that in the first opening scene, where you kind of see, like, now that he doesn't have his little green buddy around, he's a little bit more, I'm just gonna cut people up left and right. But
still no blood. Still no blood.
Still no. Well, that's Star Wars universe. Well, actually less than what New Hope was. They actually had blood when the guy's arm got cut off in New Hope. But yeah, I mean, I think if anything, this made me realize, you know, I love the Mandalorian, and I think we also have been stuck on Tatooine for so long that it's good to see her to sort of see different, you know, areas, you know, such as the certain places he goes. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think some of the action scenes are really wonderful. We get to sort of see connections to some of the stuff with the previous man. And in fact, I think, sadly, this does a better job of connecting story stuff in just one episode than Boba Fett has done in the last 4, which is kind of sad. But at the same time, I mean, not everything has to be done the same, you know, because I think once everything starts getting done the same, that's when people complain as well. Like, oh my God, well, it's the same thing. It's the same story. It's the same story as the sequels are the same story as the original trilogy. And the original trilogy is just telling them what happened and blah, 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 blah. And people get their Star Wars printed underwear in a wad. So yeah, I don't know. It's I loved everything about this episode. And I think there's, of course, those people who there's diehard Boba Fett fans are like, oh my gosh, you have an episode of Boba Fett and it doesn't have Boba Fett in it. I don't, you know, I agree with Vanessa. It's called the Book of Boba Fett. It's each of these are different chapters in a story. And if you read some books, not every chapter is about the main character, or it's about the side character who connects. And Clone Wars is the same way. I know that I had the same complaints when we were reviewing, I think, the last season of Clone Wars. I don't know if you guys remember. I was like, oh, why are you following these characters? or even like Bad Batch or something. It's like, oh, I don't care about these characters. I want to go to these other characters. So I understand people's issues with it, but at the same time, I'm a much bigger fan of Din Djarin at this point than I am of Boba Fett. Because I think it almost still feels like they're still trying to figure out who Boba Fett is. I think for me, it'll be much more interesting what they do after this episode. Because we had 2 episodes left. But yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of this episode. I was like, some of the visuals and some of the filmmaking and some of the action scenes, this felt the most Star Wars of anything I've seen in a lot of this season of Boba Fett, and also some of Mandalorian. It felt very, and it even made me feel good about the prequels. It made me like, oh, I remember this from the prequels. Oh, that was good times. So yeah, this episode, again, to quote it again, this episode was totally wizard for me.
Wizard.
And I was all wizarded out by the end of it, and it made me kind of excited. And then also just made me, if anything, it made me very excited for the next season of Mandalorian, because we get I feel like this is also a connector to where we're going to see that next season be. So anyway, I'll stop.
Yep, agree with you. Janser, how are you?
I'm great.
What was your first impression of episode 5?
My first impression was that my remote control was broken.
Yeah.
I thought maybe I was watching the wrong show. But yeah, I agree with everybody else. The action was good. I think Bryce Dallas Howard did an excellent job directing this episode. The sets were awesome. The fight scenes were very good. I was really impressed with some of the opening fight scenes and stuff like that. It was great. It was nice to see him go back to Tatooine and and visit that area and see some old characters from that show. And it really felt like I was getting sort of an Avengers vibe from it, where you get all the separate stories of these characters that are going to maybe come together at some point. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. The action was good. The one-on-ones with the characters were funny and hilarious. The creature effects and stuff like that. The creatures were all cool, as usual. So it was great, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be a little more harsh because while I really enjoyed this episode, I was kind of mad at it. Not at how I felt about the actual visuals I saw. I mean, everything in it is fantastic. It's a great episode of The Mandalorian. I absolutely loved it. But I think it takes a dark saber to the knees of Boba Fett. I think it really kind of illustrates kind of the problem they're having with this show and trying to figure out how to spotlight Boba Fett as much as they did. I understand what we're kind of hinting at with we're building stuff and stuff, but this it just felt like out of place. It felt like it could have been like a Mandalorian special. It could have still had the ending that we knew, because we already knew that Boba Fett and Fennec were on Tatooine, so it wouldn't have been a surprise or felt out of place. And then we could so I'm kind of pissed off about that. I'm kind of angry about that, and because I really want to like the Boba Fett episode and show, and I have been, but okay. So now soapbox, throw it away. Loved it. Bryce Dallas Howard is, like we said, has impressed me quite a bit, it was great to get off of Tatooine, because we've been on Tatooine for 4 episodes, so now we got a good portion of it was off of Tatooine. And then when we returned, it felt fresh again, and that was kind of cool. I enjoyed that. And there are scenes in here that are genuinely funny. Really, the hilarious references to characters we know, like Jawas and relationships and the X-Wings, and we even get like a little boost to the new fighter that's kind of like Fast and Furious. Got the little nitrous going on. Not nitrous. That's something else. Let's keep going.
Okay.
Anyway,
Fast and the Star Warriors.
Yes.
Yeah. We're family is all that matters.
Family is all that matters.
Especially when you're brother and sister. You know what I mean?
My name is Ray Skywalker.
Oh no! Why did I open that door?
It's about family.
If you could take your helmet off as a Mandalorian.
Yes. But let's get into the actual meat of the show, and what put all the whole thing about the title of the show and what this had in it, and the lack of Boba Fett, and concentrate on what we did see and what we thought.
Do you feel like, since there's only like a couple of episodes left, you feel like there's pressure to keep the Boba Fett story moving, and you're less likely to what did I say? Did I say something?
It's like Godzilla. I want more Boba Fett in my Boba Fett show.
Well, I feel like we were saying before, like they're trying to build this world. Yes. So there's no way they can tell. I mean, they'll tell the whole story, but there's still so much more story to tell in other seasons that this is building up to. So I think sometimes we can maybe look and say there's only 2 episodes left and they wasted with a Mandalorian episode or something like that. Do you think that may be what you're feeling there, Doc?
That and a lot more. A lot more.
I didn't feel such an absence of Boba Fett, because there would be no Mandalorian without Boba Fett, right? He would never exist if Boba Fett hadn't existed. So to me, it just seemed like, I don't know. I didn't feel as big of a disconnect as I think a lot of other people are feeling with this particular episode, because it just kind of felt in kind to me. You know, obviously, as we're all paying attention with the last one, he needs to buy muscle. They played the Mandalorian theme. It would lead into we would be seeing Din Djarin soon. So it just didn't seem like all that out of the norm to me to watch it. And I still felt like, especially when we got back to Tatooine, I still felt like a Boba presence there, even though he wasn't in the episode, you know?
Yeah.
No, they did have the pikes and other things like that. But you know what we really want to know, Vanessa, is with a Jawa, do you swipe left or swipe right?
I don't know the right one to say. I never had to swipe before.
It all
Both
depends
ways?
on how those
Swipe or no
beady
swipe?
little red eyes are looking
Oh,
at
yeah.
you.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
Sexy little devils, ain't they?
It depends on
Furry,
how
furry.
cold it is, I guess.
Nice. We're on Tatooine, so it's not.
Evidently, they're
it could be.
cousin-its underneath their hood.
They're a bunch of cousins.
You know, it's just a very
Well, if you're cold,
show.
just slice open a tauntaun. You stay warm. Forget the
Or a
Jawas.
couple womp rats, maybe.
Well, I feel like this story had to happen though too. I mean, I feel like the dark saber plays some part in the end, so this story kind of had to take place. Does that make sense? And
to get him and Boba back together
Yeah.
for something, you know, you knew they were going to come back together. And I just love seeing, I'm not going to stop saying this, Ming-Na Wen is almost 60 and she's jumping off of boxes.
Man,
So, like,
she
that's
is
her
so
doing
awesome.
that.
Yeah.
See, every time I see Fennec Shand, I'm like, that is a badass on screen right there. So
Great
I love,
character. Great
You know,
I
character.
love seeing her show up.
I kind of wish they had extra episodes, because I think with this Din Djarin, I almost wish we had different episodes for different bounty hunters. Like we do one for like Dengar. You know, if we had like a different one for each one of the bounty hunters they brought in,
Mm-hmm.
that would be pretty amazing. Would make sense why they're just this one focus. Because I think,
Yeah.
Right?
because I think there's gonna be one of two things going to happen after this episode. One, people are going to be pissed. Oh, I thought we were going to see Grogu, and then, or secondly, people are going to be pissed because of going,
Because we spent time going to see Grogu.
Because we spent time with that, So, or what's going to happen after that?
Yeah.
So
We're going to see Boba riding a Rancor and everyone's going to feel fine about it again.
I think that maybe the last like 2 to 3 minutes could have been in the next Book of Boba Fett episode. They could have slimmed this down to 6 episodes to keep the focus on Boba Fett and just have Fennec have that conversation with Din, and this could have been like the first episode of season 3 episode,
or just a Mandalorian special.
Yeah, and I don't know. I kind of understand where Doc is coming from, and I kind of feel the same way, because it's, even though it is the book of Boba Fett, and books generally do take time away from the main character, it's also like they don't go halfway through the book and all of a sudden shift and spend a 1/7 of the book over halfway through with a brand new character to the story, dedicating a ton of backstory to that character. At least good books don't do that. They put it throughout like the whole story. So, when that meeting does happen at some point, you have the backstory of both characters at that time. And it's not such a jolt and a stop,
Yeah, unless you're doing like a ensemble piece and doing something like Lost, where it's character centric, which is kind of what you were alluding to with all the different bounty hunters.
Well, it's very Tarantino-esque, I think, because then we go off on this other character and it connects later on. I mean, to be honest, I think probably about every fan has had an issue with one of these episodes. It's like, oh my God, this flashback thing. Oh my God, get out of the back thing. Oh my gosh, the mods. Oh my gosh, this.
Yeah,
so I think
a lot.
To be honest, I think this series has brought back some of the sort of fan hate towards Star Wars, which I hate seeing, which is fine if you don't like stuff, but I think it's also because people have expectations, about who Boba Fett is or what he is based on for those people that have been on this earth long enough to have seen it when it was theaters, like this whole time, this is how Boba Fett should be, like, oh, you know, he spent all these years and he allows Fennec Shan to destroy the Sarlacc pit. It should have been him, you know. So there's people that are getting upset about that, and I can understand that with this. To me, this is just the reason that we have Boba Fett back in the universe is because of the Mandalorian, so that we've already made that connection. So it just to me, it seems kind of natural that we'd have a little bit of focus to see what happened with Mando before he shows up. Yeah. But also, I mean, it would be kind of nice if this was a beginning to where like, oh, we did some other stories with other characters. If they're going to pull in all these different people, you know, that'd be kind of cool to see. But I can understand why it's kind of like, ooh, but we've already had weird stuff with flashbacks and stuff already. So they've already this whole storyline. It's not like this whole storyline has been very flowing flowing linearly. It's been very erratic from the get-go. So to me, it's no different than what we've already seen so far. At least for me. But I understand people's issues because even I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, and then like Fennec Shan shows up at the end. It's like, okay. But at the same time, I don't mind it because I like Mandalorian.
So can I ask you this question real quick? From a storyteller perspective, if you have to assume that like this episode, like I feel like spends a lot of time assuming that you have watched The Mandalorian to get like who these characters are and stuff throughout a lot of this episode, especially the first like third or so of it or half. Do you feel like it was appropriate to put this in a Boba Fett show where there's the potential that, well, not a lot because it's on the same network or the same streaming platform as The Mandalorian, there are probably people out there that signed up because they saw a Boba Fett show, never watched The Mandalorian, just know that I want to watch Boba Fett, and then they have to spend an entire episode with someone who's not Boba Fett, who they don't have any connection to. Like, that's kind of like, it just seems very weird to me that they would spend that whole time with the assumption that, you know, it may only be like 1 or 2% of the audience, or yet most 5%, but that still seems kind of sloppy to me. You can't
feel like
storytelling on a small portion of the audience. And I mean, if people were fans of Boba Fett, they've been watching The Mandalorian anyhow because he showed up on.
And plus, he's Mandalorian, and they're both Mandalorian. They're both
Mandalorian.
Well, Star Wars talks about itself all the time, right? You have to kind of keep up with all of it to know whatever is going on all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I think the overarching concept of it also is that we have this story about Din Djarin because he's supposed to be Mandalorian. You have Boba Fett who wears Mandalorian armor and follows that sort of used to follow that similar, I guess, code to some degree. But so you have people that are still wearing, even had like the Sabine and all these other people. Is it Sabine?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some of these other people that wore like the Mandalorian armor and stuff. So I think it connects in that way because we do have maybe that'll tie into sort of him finding his connection to Boba Fett because he has Mandalorian armor. So there is that connection there. But I don't know. I think just basing it on a few people that there's people that have never seen the original Star Wars films that watch The Mandalorian. And then you don't even have so all these little Easter eggs don't mean shit to people. To some people.
There's a lot of people that watch Mandalorian just because of Grogu. So
well, there's no people that are not even like Star Wars fans that became Star Wars fans because of Mandalorian that didn't have all this backstory that a lot of us geeky people like,
it's fair to. It's also fair to take Christopher's argument or Chris the SLATTMAN and flip it on the inverse of it. If you watched The Mandalorian but you didn't want to watch the Book of Boba Fett and you missed this episode and then come back to Mandalorian season 3, there's a really meaty chunk of his story that you haven't seen that you now have to go.
That's not the storyteller's fault, though. Look at the Flash and like Arrow and like that whole universe that had crossovers. That if you didn't watch a show from the other series, you were going to miss out on something. That's just how it is.
That'd be like telling people not to go watch Rogue One because you got to watch all the.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying don't go watch. I mean, but there's if there's somebody decided they didn't want to watch the Book of Boba Fett. they would have missed.
Then they'll go and watch that one episode.
Yeah, again,
they will now.
Really,
Yeah. But
you can't worry
that's
about
not
that
really an
small
argument that
contingent
I
of
think
people.
matters.
Right.
And I
You're
think
looking
this
at
whole
from a
season
storytelling.
suffered
I don't
from
think you
that,
should
know?
disrespect them either. Yeah, but from
Well,
a
it's not
storytelling-
disrespecting. You just
No,
can't please
I wouldn't
everybody.
find it disrespectful whatsoever. Like it just is. That is the way of making shows.
This is the way. Okay.
This is
then-
the way.
but then that ends up like baby food, the baby food approach of like, oh, we have to spell out everything for people because they might not have seen this or that. I mean, there's always going to be a built-in audience. There's people that might have a little bit of knowledge about things, and you try to make it at least you can watch it, not necessarily have to know all the little details for it to be entertaining. Because even this episode with the stuff with I haven't watched a lot of the Clone Wars, so a lot of this background information I have no idea, but I still enjoy the hell out of it. And if anything, it makes me want to go back and watch the stuff and find out all this extra information that's details to that. Because I'm sure there's people that never watched the Bad Batch. They don't get the joke about the Gonk droid who turns into a battery, which is so. But I mean, I understand people's issues and stuff like that, but I don't know. I feel like. Well, Hollywood is bad about like toning down or dumbing down stuff so everybody can understand things. Well, that's what it is.
I don't think in this case. I don't think it is. But
you're trying to tell a story. You have an overarching thing that you have your beginning, middle, and end. You know how your end is going to be. Who knows what the reasons are for wanting to include this? Obviously, there's some important aspects of this episode that are going to play into the rest of the series, so we don't know what that is yet. So that's
true. That's true. Maybe it'll make more sense. Maybe the next 2 episodes we'll find out that Boba Fett wakes up in the shower and this whole thing's been a dream.
Oh my God! Stop it! All right,
we're kind of in new territory, right? Like this is all a new story that we're hearing because with the Bad Batch, we know exactly when that's going on. And I mean, we know when this is going on, but all this information that we're getting is like completely new, right? We can't really pull it off of, going through the First Order, taking over and all that stuff. So I find it interesting too, that I think this series kind of is falling into that, it's called the Book of Boba Fett, but it feels just more like a Star Wars show, It doesn't necessarily feel like tonally it's always been so directed on Boba Fett or what we've expected to see. So I'm interested to see like how much of a Star Wars show is this going to be? How much are we going to see it turn into something like that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and as much as I love this episode, I do have issues with how this whole season is played out. I kind of wish they'd done it more linearly. Started when he got pulled out of that Starlight pit and told it linearly. I think this would be a much more interesting show than doing the flashbacks, which kind of suck you out of the flow of it. And there's a lot of repetition and stuff. I don't know. I feel like the structure of it's probably been the biggest problem so far. And you have that structure of the flashbacks, and then you have this where it's just like a totally different a side story. So I think the structure of this is kind of messed up. So maybe they'll learn from their mistakes after this season and realize maybe we should tell stories in a different way next time.
I did watch this reminds. Just real quick, I just want to say I did watch this episode twice. So I just, just to put it out there, I really love the episode. I just But you were going to say something, Slattery.
You know what this reminds me of? Comics. Comics are like a lot of comic stories. It doesn't matter who makes them; they all fall under this trap. Kind of feel exactly like this show, where very repetitious at times. Things are you can read panels in like 5 issues in the same run, and they all say the same thing because they have. Or they're not told in the right order or things like that, or you have a crossover issue where you have to read through issue 3 and then read issue number 17 of this other thing and then continue on with number 4. Like that's what it feels like.
Yeah, I think Chad will agree with this. It feels more like when you're reading a series and you're really into it and they've got this storyline going on, and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
you have an issue.
All of a sudden, the artist or writer gets
Change,
sick
and
and you got a filler issue
Yeah,
coming in.
and they go off and tell this weird story, and it doesn't even have the character, and it's got and
But
and
but
you
at
look
the
at it
same
and you just go,
yeah,
What?
but at the same time, those comic filler issues are standalones, and this
That's true. That's true.
this episode really I felt like it really tied into the overall story. So
it felt like an Iron Man issue in the middle of the Hulk run. I know, you know what I mean? It just feels.
yeah.
But anyway, we
Yeah.
need to talk about other things. So let's talk about Pelimoto because she has a very interesting role in this episode. And Christopher, was it at the beginning of this show or was it on our spoiler episode where you said that you didn't like the character, but now you did? Why?
For some reason, just her character felt, like and I hate saying this because I feel like I hear this from about every Star Wars fan at some point. Like, this does not feel like Star Wars, and for some reason, her character felt a little bit out of place. And I normally like Amy Sedaris in most things, but for some reason, she just felt kind of weird. But this episode, I think she's just sort of like in her groove now. And I'm kind of okay with it, to where, if anything, it's probably smoothing over my issues previously. She just felt like that sort of like over the top, which we always have this sort of, I guess, over the top comedic character sometimes in Star Wars, especially in
Sometimes.
Well, me's not comedic.
No.
But,
R2D2, C3PO.
R2D2. They got those. Yeah, they got criticism when Star Wars came out, like all these stupid comedic robots. But yeah, I don't know. I learned to sort of, and I think this, I don't know. There's just much more, even chemistry between her and the robots and stuff
And the
are very
Jawas.
funny. And I actually laughed a few times at some of the pieces of dialogue. And I think a lot, and even she speaks in Jawa, and that felt natural
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
I think that would seem kind of goofy any other time, but when she just
That
does
was
it like.
hilarious.
And I was like,
hilarious.
okay, I actually believed it. So I don't know. I think she's definitely grown on me in a way that I'm like, I wasn't expecting, because I for some reason her character irritated me previously on the Mandalorian. But now I don't know. She seems okay now, and I kind of like her character. I didn't pay attention till this time that she doesn't have eyebrows. They put stuff over her eyebrows, and I guess that's maybe the weird thing. She's got like the Sigourney Weaver hair from Alien, and the outfits are like from Alien.
I thought she from Cheers, but that's a different thing.
Same hair.
Yeah. What do you think, Vanessa? You like the character and the actress quite a bit, right?
Oh yeah, I always loved anytime Amy Sedaris was on one of the episodes. So I was really happy to see her, and she was featured more heavily in this episode in particular. So we got to see more of her quirks and her funniness and her little attitude that she has, especially with the droids.
We're shaking. And a womp rat.
Yeah, fine, I'll do it myself. I just love it. I love her. I love her sassy attitude. And to me, that felt very Star Wars, She's almost like the nicer version of Sebulba, kind of, right? She's doing all this kind of like, well, she's working on the ships and the droids and all that stuff, but she might sell you for $1 or she might not. Depends on if she likes you or not.
Might put you in a petting zoo. Chad, she altered the astromech and turned it into like a little. Who's going to end up there? Tell me, Chad. Tell me who's going to end up in that seat. Grogu.
Yeah.
The answer is Grogu.
Grogu, everyone. Grogu.
No way. I don't believe it.
Oh my God. All right.
I think he needs his own little dome too, or he might just be in outer space.
Oh my God.
What if it's the BD droid though?
I would
That'd
love
be awesome.
that.
Because by the end he was kind of getting attached to the BD droid.
But my only question is, if he's still going to be a bounty hunter, how
How's he gonna do
Is
that?
he just going to carry their dead bodies outside?
There's
Yeah, only
Right.
room for the heads. He's
Their
gonna
head's
have
gonna
to
be
do
back in
all
the
those-
thing.
That's where he'll put the head.
It'd be like Firefly, the Ravagers or whatever, where they
Well, when he says
hide
he's going to
bodies
take,
from outside.
says he's
Before-
going to take them in cold. I mean, outer space
Before
cold.
he's just gonna wrap them
Got
up
a strap on the outside.
Just bodies flying behind.
Like a barrel of
that.
monkeys where they connected to
Yeah.
each other.
They look like Leia.
like the cans at the
Okay.
bottom of the car when it's like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
married.
Just married.
We've just been bountied. Yeah.
Of course, if Christopher was directing it, they would be in there. There'd just be like 20 heads in there bouncing around. Be like,
Although-
what's that game where you keep hitting it? And
Like Futurama heads.
Although-
all over the back.
Although there's one moment that made me laugh. I don't know if it was intentional, but I felt like there was a Spaceballs moment where Paz.
oh no, there was very much a Spaceballs
holding
moment.
the lightsaber.
Yeah, yeah.
crotch.
My I see your
Big as
Schwartz
yours.
is bigger than mine.
That was
No,
that
that's
was
a
very
good
much so. Even the angle was awesome too. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's give our final, because I think we've talked about this for like 10 hours. Let's just go ahead and wrap it up. Let's give our final thoughts, recommendation, our score 1 to 5, and I don't think we're gonna have a hard time finding a favorite scene. There's plenty. Slatman, please, if you would, start us off.
So this is such a weird episode to give a final thought on, because as a Star Wars episode, as a Star Wars media, like, it's amazing, it's fantastic, it's directed well, the script is amazing, the direction is awesome, the acting is very well done, like the situations are creative, it's got enough like callbacks to make longtime fans happy, but it's got enough new and enough explanation in it to make newer viewers that haven't watched those old movies like to catch them up. It's a very well done episode. The music is well done. The special effects are fantastic. So with all of that in mind, I have to give it a 5. And I have to give it a recommendation to anybody who loves Star Wars, just in general. But I do have to criticize it, because as a Book of Boba Fett episode, I feel like it took away from... I feel like it just kind of showed what the quality that the previous episodes could have been. And it just kind of takes away from the Boba Fett show. And I don't know if that was intentional. So it's like...
No, I don't think it was intentional.
Yeah, so it's like, I feel like it takes away from Boba Fett's story by focusing on a character that I feel like most of us like more. Just in general. Like, I'm... especially just like, I don't know. It's so weird. It's such a weird position to be in. But man, this episode was awesome.
Yes, it
And
was.
I cannot wait for Mandalorian season 3 now, and I also can't wait to see him in the next couple episodes. I hope he's in the next couple episodes of Book of Boba Fett. He did say he has something to do, so he might not be in episode 6, and he might just show up in episode 7. So yeah, highly recommend it. My favorite scene is probably him flying the N1 starfighter through Tatooine.
Yes, I like that too. All right, Vanessa, your recommendation, your favorite scene, and your score 1 to 5.
Absolutely recommend it. I'd recommend watching this whole season. I can't wait for the next 2 episodes to come out. I'm so curious to see where it's going to go, because really every episode has just been kind of a curveball. You have no idea what to expect as they're coming, and I kind of like that. I'm going to give this one a 5. This was a fun, super fun episode. I mean, it, like Slatman was saying, we didn't get a whole lot of any Boba story progression kind of, but until the end, at least, I guess, when we circle back around. But outside of that, I really, really loved this episode. Loved seeing Din again and being brought back into that part of the world. And my favorite scene, I think, is just when he gets there to where Paz is, and they start working on the ship, and the interaction with all the droids. That BD unit made my heart smile when I saw that. It made me so happy. And that's the one thing, Disney World, you need to work on, is a BD droid where you can go build all the droids, because they have all of them but that one. I want a little BD droid I can just put on my shoulder and walk around with.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just love that. This episode in particular felt very Star Wars to me, and I had a lot of fun with it.
Excellent. That's good. Krista Fett, you're up next.
Krista Fett.
Yes. What was your?
I may have to change my name. I like that. That's my new filmmaker name. It's just one word, Krista Fett. That sounds like my hairstylist though. Welcome to Krista Fett's.
Oh my God.
Anyway, let's not turn that into a thing.
Anyway, did you like it?
I definitely recommend this episode. It's, you know, I think this episode was really well crafted. And Bryce Dallas Howard, I think you can tell she's got some of her Ron Howard DNA and her abilities as a filmmaker. I think her storytelling ability is amazing. And I will say there's stuff in this episode that I think it's some of the best visual stuff in all of Star Wars. That ring world, that Halo-esque ring world,
That was really cool.
where there's like a star, there's like an opening in this open ring, and the light moves just like it goes across, a world, is visually one of the most amazing things I've seen in this universe. And maybe it's because I'm a Halo fan, but I mean, for me, although they need some OSHA standards in Star Wars, okay? What places don't have handrails? That underneath thing, there's no handrails.
Have you seen the Family Guy?
I know. I've seen that. I've seen that. But the whole time I'm like, I don't like heights, and it makes me even more nervous if the heights involve you fall into freaking space because you fall off of this little platform. And even the one part where he falls off and he uses his rocket pack, I was, oh God. And so when they take the rocket packs off, I got nervous for the people, and I know this is not a real thing. So yeah, there's so many great, from the 2-minute long shot, the fight scenes, which we actually get to see a lot of the violence that we've been wanting out of Boba Fett. He cuts a person in half.
Yes, and a table along with
the
it.
dark saber. He cuts a person in half, and you get to see it pretty much. I mean, there's no blood, but I was like, oh my God, they're really going for it in this episode. So yeah, I don't know. I love the hell out of this. And even though it's kind of a big departure, I mean, it still kind of connects, but I can understand people's issues with it, because it's kind of, what? I thought because I think the main complaint is people complaining, oh, we're not doing enough with Boba Fett. We're not doing enough with Boba Fett. Oh, we're not even going to do anything with Boba Fett. So I can understand people's issues with it. But again, I love the character of Din Djarin, and I love that we sort of get this connecting tissue with the last season, and that's going to connect us and make us even more freaking excited for the new season. There's so many great things. There's even a space chicken crowing.
Oh, there is.
Oh yeah.
Which I completely forgot to mention in our Easter egg. I saw a picture online. I was like, I forgot about that. I actually laughed out loud because it was like a dragon. It was like crowing like a chicken. So I don't know. They have so much fun with Easter eggs. I mean, all the Easter eggs and stuff. We go back. I mean, one of my favorite parts of Phantom Menace is the pod racing stuff. And so when we get callbacks to that, and the new ship looks freaking amazing. I want that. I want that ship. I'm going to have to buy that ship.
Call out to Naboo at the same time.
I'm going to have to knock kids down in the aisles, wherever, or I guess it'd be Amazon.com now. But anyway, it's a 5 out of 5 for me. It's 5 out of 5 Beskar pieces. It's pretty amazing. It's definitely a recommend. As for favorite scene, well, first of all, I want to say a favorite shot and a favorite scene.
Excellent.
the shot of him walking on the Halo-esque structure, and you see that light going up. That is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in Star Wars. And I don't know if there's anything Ralph McQuarrie has made with that, or if that's a new invention based on other sci-fi properties, but that's just beautiful. I mean, I could pick a million different scenes in this episode. There's so many fun parts, but just to mix it up, I'm going to say the Darksaber part, because when he cuts that guy in half, I'm like, that's the brutality I've been missing in the series, because I feel like he's become less brutal, and I kind of miss that a little bit, or miss what the thoughts we had about him, which if he's grown as a character, that's fine, but I also kind of like, that's why I like that Din Djarin's still in that gray area and I'm going to cut his head off like Medusa and just walk around with a head in the bag. So it's made by Disney Plus. Who knew? So yeah, that's probably one of the many favorite parts of this episode.
Excellent. Chancellor, let us have it.
Everything's been stolen by everybody else.
The fellow's got it all, my friend.
I highly recommend this. I had such a good time watching this episode. And my favorite scene was going to be the whole opening sequence in the Nerf slaughterhouse and that. But my second choice in that is the whole montage of them putting the ship together, and then him test driving the ship and flying it, and then going into space with it. Everything like that was just, I really, really love that. And I still feel like this has something to do with the overall story, not just him on his own doing all this stuff, Din, but I want to give it a 5. Because just looking at the episode by itself, as the episode stands, it's really a really good episode. Maybe not of Boba Fett, but it's a really, really good story, a continuation of the Mandalorian story, and the way it ties into it. So I want to give it a 5.
Nice.
I like that. I'm giving it a 5 too. I watched it twice. I'd give it a 10. So it doesn't work that way, does it? I love the episode, but it also came with a soapbox. I've said all that, so I'm going to drop it right there. The direction on this is there's a lot going on. The lore, the action, the direction. There's just so much. The new stuff, like Christopher was saying, that we get, and all the call. It's absolutely a 5. You absolutely have to see this. I loved it. My favorite scene is actually going to be that 2-minute scene, Christopher. But it's actually even a small piece of that 2-minute scene. When he goes into the elevator and it has that one alien in there, and the alien kind of looks down at him and sees the head, back, and then looks up, and then Mando turns his head and he just jerks back so fast. I thought I was going to fall out. That was just... It was the timing and the setup of that, and to do that little bit in the middle of all that, how clever, how perfect, because they obviously had to do something right with the scenes behind them, because of all the stuff they were doing, and to put that in there was, it's the genius that that builds the series on Disney Plus, and I love it. So. Great stuff.
Yep. Agreed.
Yes.
And also, who knew that you could leave little clues, that Mandalorians could leave clues to where this is truly the way if your visor can read the clues.
Oh yeah. It's like little
so literally, this is the way to where the Mandalorians are.
This way. This is the way.
Oh my God. Shout out to like Din, like the little humor moment that Din had where he's just like, you might want to put that on ice.
Yeah. Great dialogue. And it was great to see the armor again. And was it Paz Vizsla? And and
they made it out. Good for them.
But there's only 3 left. They gave us that answer, so ouch. All right, guys, that's our extended review of the Book of Boba Fett episode 5. Yeah, Vanessa's killing it there. We hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you think down below. All right, Christopher, Vanessa, Chad, and Slatman, thank you for joining me. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. It sure was.
We'll have to see what happens next.
I know I'm gonna. It's like I feel like I'm gonna eat my words next week. Like, oh, okay, I get it.
Next week it'll be a Jar Jar Binks episode.
Oh my God.
That
could happen.
That would be the most awesome thing to me.
It's only a matter of time.
We're going to fight the Pikes. No. On that note,
yes,
let's say
we are.
good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.